people with real jobs.
Hello?
Self-employed people. Which do you want to be? This is Certifiably Unemployable. It's time to fire the boss and become self-employed. Maybe you need a push to get that business or side gig going that you've been dreaming about for years. And if you're an entrepreneur, you can listen to stories and get experience from people who've done it. Get ready to change your life. Broadcasting from the compound, this is Certifiably Unemployable, and this is Sean Dean.
Welcome to Certifiably Unemployable. I am your host, Sean Dean, and thanks once again for joining us. And super excited about this week's episode. Jay Owen, who actually I've known for several years. We've done some business in the past, but he actually started a business when he was 17 years old, and he's the owner of Design Extensions, right, which you started when you were 17. Yep. So you're a solid 20 years in. But he's also the author of a book called Building a Business That Lasts, and you have your own podcast, so you have a lot of knowledge. And so, Jay, what I'm excited to talk to you about today is longevity in a business, because we talk all the time about things that people need to bring into themselves, into their business, for them just to get it started. But really, like you've said many times, that's the easy part. It's allowing that business to grow and make itself long-term, so now you can continue to have time with your family and everything else. So welcome to Certifiably Unemployable. Thanks for being a guest.
Sean, man, I'm so glad to be here today. You and I have gone way back, and it's a little intimidating to compete with somebody who has a DJ caliber voice, but not really compete. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I understand. Yeah,
you sound so good on the show. So I'm really excited to be here. I love talking about business growth, and really long-term success, because I think that, which success means something different to everybody, but I think that idea is something that's lost in our culture right now. Everybody's wondering about how do we get rich quick? How do we lose weight quick? How do we do all these things quick? And the fact is, most good things take time.
Right. I agree. So if you're watching this, don't be shy to comment, make comments. Let us know what resonates with you, because either myself or Jay will get that answer for you. My goal, and I know Jay has a similar goal, is that we just want this to impact you in a way to where it helps you catapult your business further. It might even help you get that business started. So don't hesitate to comment. Make sure you click subscribe and share it, okay? Even if you're listening on one of the podcast servers, just let us know what we can do to make it better. So Jay, where do we begin with allowing your business to sustain, last, and have longevity?
I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I'm actually working on a second book to kind of put this all in a little bit more of a framework. And I talk about kind of the 4 Ps of business. Now, this isn't totally unique to me. There are a lot of people who have said similar things, but it's a really good idea of how to package these together. So the 4 Ps are this. You have to have the right people. You have to have the right product. You have to have the right processes. And then I believe you have to have the right promotion to grow a business over time. And so the most important of those 4, to me, they all matter. You have to have all 4 to grow successfully over time. They're like 4 legs on a stool. Without one, the stool starts to fall over. But the most important is the people component. And so if I have to start somewhere, that's always where I start. And I don't just mean like people on your team. I also mean people that are around you. So, what you and I both know in the entrepreneurial space is it's easy to feel lonely and isolated doing your own thing. People say things like, it's lonely at the top. And I always say it is, but it doesn't have to be. And I really believe that as entrepreneurs, business leaders, we need the right community around us. So here's how I define it. In that people bucket, I say there's 4 kinds of people that everybody needs, especially entrepreneurs, especially people that want to build a business that lasts. And here's those 4 people. Number 1, you need somebody to look up to. Now, this is somebody that you're learning from, somebody who's ahead of you, an aspirational identity, if you will. Now, this could be ideally a mentor, somebody you know personally, or it could just be somebody that you follow intently. Maybe you read all their books, you listen to their podcast, you follow them. For me, one of my aspirational identities is a guy named Michael Hyatt. I don't know him personally. I know his executive assistant, actually, but I don't know him personally. And he's an author. He's a business coach, and just a great guy. He's been married to the same woman for 40 years. He's got 5 grown children who seem to still like him, at least on social media. Has a successful business, seems to really care about people. That's who I want to be when I'm 60 years old. And so that's my aspirational identity. He's somebody I look up to. So that's the first person. You ever need somebody to look up to. The second is we all need somebody to stand beside us. We need fellow entrepreneurs. We need fellow friends, people who are in similar seasons of life, walking through with us, to commiserate with, to complain about stuff with, but also to encourage us, and say, hey, I've dealt with that. I'm dealing with that right now. It's normal. Keep pushing through. So you need somebody to look up to, somebody to stand beside you, and you need somebody who's looking up to you. I believe all of us should be teaching somebody somewhere. I don't care where you are in your journey, whether you're just starting out like I was when I was 17, there's still somebody else you can teach, regardless of how old you are or how much experience you have. There's somebody else who has a little bit less than you, and you can help encourage them, because when we teach, we actually learn the most. So we need somebody to look up to. That's number one. Somebody to stand beside us. That's number 2. Somebody who's looking up to us. And the last one, this is really important and possibly the hardest to find sometimes, is we need people around us, at least one person, who believes in us when we don't believe in ourselves. Because at the end of the day, there are always going to be times, I don't care how confident you are or how smart you are, there's going to be days where you doubt, can I get this done? I remember so clearly, like it was yesterday, saying to my wife, I wonder if I'll ever have enough work just to keep myself busy the whole week. I remember that. And now I've got 20 people who are busier than they have time to do work for. Right. I remember, our first year, I made $5,500 total revenue. This year, we'll do close to $3 million. And so, but I remember what it was like going, I don't know if I'll ever have enough money to care for a family, but my wife believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. It might not be a spouse. It might be a friend. It might be a mentor that believes in you. It might be a coach or a counselor. But you need a cheerleader. You need somebody that believes in you when you don't believe in yourself. And if you have those 4 people, somebody to look up to, somebody to stand beside you, somebody who's looking up to you, and somebody who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself, your path towards long-term success and growth are going to be much stronger. So find those 4 people, write them down. If you don't have them, seek them out, because we all need those people.
I love it. And I agree, because one of the things that I think every entrepreneur goes through, and I'm sure you've gone through this, is those days where you just want to throw in the towel.
Yeah, sure.
And because you just want to give up. And it's not that you might just no longer have the fire in your belly, or you just don't believe that it's going to work. And just like you said to your wife, am I going to have enough work just to keep myself busy?
Yeah.
And your wife, she stood by your side. So it's very important to have a spouse or a significant other that's in your corner.
Absolutely.
100%. Yep.
Absolutely.
So I love it. So that's people. What about product?
So
anything you want to talk about with that?
Yeah, with the product, the second piece of that puzzle, and I'm going to be talking about a lot of this. I'm going to be teaching this framework over a 2-day live event, actually. It's coming to St. Augustine the end of March in 2021. People think I'm crazy to be planning a live event in the middle of a pandemic, but I think it's the perfect time, because I think that next year, once we kind of get a little bit farther past this thing, everybody's going to be hungry for live events. We're going to be hungry for getting back together. And I think businesses need a reboot. They need an opportunity to go, all right, we made it through one of the hardest, craziest years that any business has ever experienced since, I don't know when, maybe the Great Depression. And so now what? And so I'm going to teach these 4 principles. But this second one, that's March 29th and 30th here in St. Augustine, Florida. So people should come to Florida, enjoy our beautiful city. The second one, product. We have to have a product that people actually need, want, and desire. Now, that seems obvious. But I see people sometimes who go, I've got this great idea, and so-and-so's told me it's a great idea. But you only really know something's a great idea when people are willing to actually pay you for it. This is a big problem that people have when they're developing a product or a service, is that they get a lot of people around them who give them false encouragement. And this can be dangerous as not having any encouragement, where somebody goes, oh yeah, that's going to work great. What I love people to do with the product is try something before they spend every hour and dollar on kind of the perfect version. So get to the minimal viable product. Get to the version that you go, you know what, this is a sellable product. Now, my vision of where I want it to go in 10 years is over there, but a lot of people make the mistake of constantly trying to get to the 10-year vision and never launching anything. So that product has got to be launched, and it's got to be put out in the public in a way that people actually want it. So the question you have to ask about whatever your product is what problem does this actually solve? People buy things to solve problems. I don't care what it is that they're buying that thing to solve a problem. It's usually to solve how they feel about a problem, in fact. So we need to really clearly define what does our customer want and what problem is this product helping to solve. If you don't know that, you should not be selling a product yet. So you got to define those things. You got to really know what that product is. And then it has to have, you have to put the time and energy into making it look good and be presentable. And all these things seem obvious, but I see a lot of people who don't take that time, or they're investing time in things that aren't as valuable overall.
Yeah. I think baby steps is so important in any business, in any process, in any product. I mean, you're right. So many people, they see the finish line and they just try to run so fast, they skip so many steps along the way. So love it.
That's right.
Love it. So you've got 2 more P's as part of your puzzle. Did you want to talk about those?
Yeah, so process, I hate process. I'm kind of the wing it kind of guy, let's just throw something against the wall and see what sticks. And that's fine in the early days sometimes. Sometimes when you're just starting off, that speed of just trying things is really valuable. But if you're going to scale long-term, I always say that a lot of small businesses can kind of wing it to maybe 10 people and $1 million. But if you want to scale past that at some point, people go, I'd love to have $1 million. Well, that doesn't mean you have $1 million. It means there's $1 million in revenue. You might not have anything after it's all said and done.
Right.
But if you want to get past that point, and ultimately you want to build something that's going to allow you to have some rest, because this is the problem, right? Most people start a business to do one of 2 things: create more time, which is freedom, or create more money, or both, right? Or maybe there's a third, which is do something you actually love. But ultimately, that hopefully is going to give you more time and freedom, time and money, I should say. And so what the processes do, what the systems do, I used to always think that was a very corporate-y thing. It's very corporate-y to have these processes and systems that are documented, but it's not. Entrepreneurs and small businesses need to have good processes in place. So for us, one of the great tools that we use is a book called Traction by a guy named Gino Wickman. Love this book. It basically outlines what he calls the entrepreneurial operating system. And from beginning to end, it teaches you how to set a 10-year vision, how to set a 3-year plan, how to set 1-year goals, how to set 90-day rocks or objectives in order to accomplish those things, then how to build out a leadership team, how to create organizational structure, how to create process around that. Now, look, my eyes start to glaze over a little bit usually when I start talking about these things, but now they're actually exciting for me because I've seen the result of what they do. And the result of that for me was this summer, one of my big goals this year was to take 30 days off and not work. Years ago, it was to take 1 day off, and then it was to take a weekend off, and it was take a week off. There was a time when I couldn't take an afternoon off, or the whole company I felt was going to collapse. It needed me to be available for whatever popped up all the time, and that is exhausting. It's fun in a season, kind of, but it's not sustainable, right? So this year, one of my big goals is to take 30 days off, which is a lot. Most businesses go through a full cycle of business in 30 days. They acquire new clients. They probably lose some clients, hopefully not too many, but maybe they do. They send out bills. They collect money. They sign contracts. They terminate contracts. They, have new things that start, new things that launch. All that happens typically in most businesses in a 30-day period. So if I knew if I could get to a place where I could take 30 days off, it meant the business could survive, but ultimately my goal now is for it to thrive without me. And it's not because I want to sell the business, and it's not because I don't want to work. I think people are made for work, number one. And number two, I actually love what I get to do at least 85% of the time. And so, but the processes, going back to that, the processes that we put in place are what allowed me to be able to take that time. Now, having great people on my team also allowed that. I got to have great people to be able to operate at a certain level, but I never wanted to have more than 10 employees. And now I have almost 20. Right. but I had to get to that point because the business structure and processes required a certain number of experts and a certain number of seats for it to be able to thrive without me as like the entrepreneurial head who's always going to put out the fire. My job is not to always put out the fire. In fact, my job is to create a space where other people have the opportunity to fail, where other people have the opportunity to put out fires themselves, because that's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to grow. My job is to create that environment as a leader for that team. So that's why process is so important. And we're going to kind of work through that a lot more in this live event that we're doing in March. And then the last one is promotion. We talk a lot about that because we're a marketing agency. And in fact, we're kind of even changing what we call ourselves. Going into 2021, we're actually going to be calling ourselves a business growth agency instead of a marketing agency. Because it's not just about social media or paid ads or websites or print collateral, which is kind of what people put marketing in a bucket as. It's about what needs to happen. What are your goals? How are we going to get you there? What messaging needs to be created? It's all of those pieces of the puzzle that we're kind of tacking on because we found that's where ultimate success lies for people. And so promotion ultimately is about getting attention and acquiring customers. That's it. If you can't get attention and acquire customers, you don't get to be in business anymore. At least you don't get to be in a business that makes you any money. And people usually want to make money in business. And so having the right promotion helps us get attention and acquire customers. That starts with having the right message. And we spend a lot of time now on getting that messaging right, which years ago we didn't spend any time on. Now we require that up front because we know that's how that business is going to scale and grow with the right, clear message.
Perfect. Well, we're talking to Jay Owen of Design Extensions and Building a Business That Lasts. And Jay, I know one of the biggest things for a business is getting to their 1 year anniversary, their 5 year mark, their 10-year mark. And with the 4 Ps that you've just been talking about, do you think that that's the key to getting to 1, 5, and 10, or how do you think that breaks down in being able to say we're 1 year old, 5 years old, 10 years old, then 20 years old, and so on?
Yeah, great question. So I would say that the first year, especially, most businesses fail in the first year, unfortunately. Right. Statistics are really clear. Most businesses do not make it past the 12-month mark. So if you're already past that, congratulations, you already are ahead of most businesses that ever get started in the first place. Even fewer make it past the 5th year. And if you make it past the 10th year, you're not invincible because nobody is. Blockbuster Video doesn't exist anymore, Yeah. But if you make it past the 10th year, you have proven that you have what it takes to make it through all kinds of turmoil that is outside of your control. And that's really important. But I would say, to go to your question, I think these 4 Ps are paramount for long-term success and growth. But they can't all be implemented at the exact same time. So you got to figure out where to start. And I think where it starts is you have to have, as an entrepreneur, a little bit of a scrappy mentality, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's kind of where my head is. I think you have to have a gut that will allow you to persevere through difficult days, because I see a lot of people who start really excited and then they get beat up really fast in business because it's a lot harder than they think to deal with all the other stuff other than the one thing that they actually like to do. Somebody's great at making cupcakes. And so they're like, hey, go start a cupcake shop. And they're like, great, I'm going to start a cupcake shop. Everybody loves my cupcakes. But then when they start the cupcake shop, they got to deal with the lease, and they got to deal with cleaning that cupcake shop, and they got to deal with insurance, and they got to deal with payroll, and they got to deal with, there's all these other things that you have to deal with in business. And it's very easy to get worn out, stressed out, and ready to quit. So I think in the early years, that people component is really important. You have to have the right people around you. That's where I would start. If you don't have the right people around you, you should not start a new business. You're going to burn out. You have to have those people first. And then I think, there's so much opportunity now to learn online, which is great. But the problem is knowing who to trust. Like, you can go on YouTube and learn anything, but how do I get feedback? I can go watch somebody teach me something, but how do I get feedback? I think businesses need, especially early in their life cycle, they need to have a coach of some sort, which can be that person they look up to, but they need a coach that's going to help guide them through and figure out what needs to happen for them, because everybody's a little bit different. There is no like perfect formula for starting a business, because we all have different strengths, and we got to figure out where those strengths are, and then we got to figure out how to outsource our weaknesses. So I think everybody needs a coach to help them see things that they don't see. Many times what people do is they go, well, I know what my weaknesses are. And it's like, well, that's good, but you don't know what your blind spots are. People are like, yeah, I do. I'm like, no, you don't. Neither do I. You don't know what your blind spots are, because that is the definition of a blind spot, is that you cannot see it, right? And so we need other people who are willing and able and have the authority and permission to point out those things and help us get it right. And that's why we're moving towards doing a lot more coaching and consulting for 2021, in addition to all the other services that we provide as a marketing agency, because I've just found that people need that outside view. They need groups of masterminds of other business owners. They need coaches to help them go through some of the fundamentals. I think people need to know the direction of where they're going. You know, I used to think things like mission statements and core values were just for corporations, and they're not. People need a clear mission statement. They need to know why they're doing what they're doing and where they're headed. Because if you don't know where you're headed, it can't just be about money. It can't. I know, like, it's so easy to think, well, I just want to do this. I want to make money and I kind of like doing it. That is not good enough. You will not make it long-term. And if it is just about the money, there has to be a bigger purpose. There has to be a bigger why. And those things have to be figured out in the first year, or you're not going to make it.
Right. So one of the things that I, might be a few years back, you had done something with your company where you had done a vacation or a staycation, something where you involved your families. Not only did you have your staff, but you all involved your families. So tell me about the idea behind that. Who was it? Your idea? How it came to fruition, and what was the result from that?
I don't remember whose idea it was. It probably wasn't mine. It was probably Chris's on my team. He's kind of the fun one. I mean, I'm kind of fun, but he's more fun than me. And so community and family is a big deal for us. I mean, if you're watching the video version of this, you can see family drawn up on the wall behind me. That's one of our core values. Not just family as in like your nuclear family of your spouse and your children or things like that, but like operating in a way that we care for those that are around us as if we're going to have a long-term relationship with them, regardless of how long they stay here. And so, you know, one of the things in the early days, this was years and years ago when we first started doing this, you know, a lot of businesses will do things like out-of-town conferences. And we do some of those now too, which is great. But the idea of taking the entire team without their spouse and without their kids away for a week was kind of like, man, I don't know, I don't love that idea, you know? And so what we did is we started this thing we call workcation. And
that was it.
Everybody loves vacation. Not everybody loves to work, but hopefully we put them together. They can be kind of fun. We actually did very little work on workcation, to be honest, but it was more about a week of thinking about us as a company, working on the business versus in the business. Not just for me to do that, but for the whole team to do that. So back then what I did was I rented a big beach house. We did this for quite a few years in a row. We rented a big beach house. We brought everybody, all the kids, all the spouses. It was a blast. That worked in the early years because we were all in kind of a similar season of life as far as age. We all had a bunch of kids. It all made sense in that season. In the last couple of years, we've changed that, one, because we've grown so much, but we kept the idea of workcation, and we still bring spouses, but we don't bring kids anymore. Because I also found that people need a break from their kids, and and they need a vacation with their spouse. And I'm kind of forcing them into that by paying for it for them. So we've done all kind of stuff. This year, we were supposed to do a cruise. We did a cruise we did a cruise 2 years ago, and then 3 years ago we did a cruise as well, and it was a lot of fun. It's easy to do, and you can get group rates and all that kind of stuff, so it kind of works out because it's just all included. But COVID kind of shot that down for us this year, so we still got a deposit in with Royal Caribbean, actually. I'm planning to do it next year. One year we rented a house up in Lake Lanier, and the whole team plus their spouses went up there, and we do some training now, so we'll spend – like when we did the house in Lake Lanier, we spent 2 days. We brought in a consultant to do some personality training to help people understand themselves and the people that they're around more, which was great. And we did those for like 2 mornings, and the rest of it was pretty much fun time, team time. But what I find is that in the midst of all of that, like, let's just go have a party basically for a couple of days, maybe even a week, is that our brains need time to rest. All of our brains do. this is real science. It's not like just my anecdotal, reference. Like our brains need time to rest. We know this is true because our best ideas, almost everybody's, they pop in our heads when we're in the most inconvenient time. We're driving in the car, we're in the shower, it's something like that. And the reason it happens in those times is because our brain has free space. Because we're in the shower, we're not looking at our phone. Hopefully, I'm got waterproof phones now. I don't know. We're not looking at our phones. We're not watching the TV. We're not working on a project. We're just getting a shower. And so your brain has some freedom. When you're driving, hopefully you're not looking at your phone then either, although that's kind of a problem for some people. And when you're driving, you're not looking at your phone. You're not messing with other things. And your brain has a little freedom. And when it does that, all these ideas start to come up. Great ideas happen after naps. The live workshop I started last year started after a nap, believe it or not. It was great. And so Workcation does that for us as a team, and that we're all kind of hanging out, we're having a good time. But inevitably in that, somebody goes, you know what, I was thinking about this. What do you think about this idea? And those ideas almost never happen outside of having that type of focused environment that's away from work, it's away from other distractions in life, because we've all got enough of those. And our brains need freedom and they need rest.
I love it. That's a great idea. I believe it's important. I know with a lot of the business that my partner and I do, we do everything we can to involve our wives and our family, and we've even done some of that in the past, and it's really been effective because everybody needs some time off, like you said. Yeah. And I know there's a lot of times that my business partner and I will go out of town. We will do some things away, and we're like, it's just not the same without our wives. And you're focusing on what you're doing, mm-hmm. but you're partially distracted because you also want to be back at home base. So I love that idea. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't remember when you first started it, but I remember seeing it on social media and I was like, that's cool. That's cool.
It's been a long time now. I don't know how long we've done it, but probably at least 8 or 9 years, maybe 10.
So one thing I want to do is I want to give people an opportunity to understand a little bit more about your business. Maybe just take a moment, tell us about Design Extensions. I know you've kind of given us a little bit of information. Mm-hmm. Also for people, if they do want to reach out to you, we want to be able to get connected. And then also tell us about your book. I know that there's a way for people to get a free copy, an audio version of that. So give us a little detail on that, because I also want to be able to place the links inside of the podcast on social media, YouTube, etc.
Sure. Well, I always say marketing is confusing and expensive, and growing a successful business can be really hard. And so what we do at Design Extensions is we help create clarity in their marketing and create a clear plan and then execute that plan so they can get attention and acquire customers. What does that look like? It looks like, first we start with what we call a marketing blueprint. And we sit down for somewhere between 2 to 6 hours. It's a workshop that we do internally. And we help clarify their message and make sure they have a clear plan about what's going to happen so they don't end up wasting money and time on marketing that doesn't work, because most people have experienced that. And then we will do all of the executable items that they may need, such as messaging, website design, social media, paid ads, whatever those things are. But it's all based around what that plan was at the beginning. And so that's what Design Extensions does. We've done that for 21 years. Like I said earlier, I started when I was 17 years old. We've grown every single year for over 21 years now. And our desire ultimately is to help other people grow their businesses. We believe that what we do is a lot more than just putting pixels and words on a screen. What we do is help other people achieve their dreams. We help other people grow their businesses so they can care for their families and the people around them. And the impact and purpose that creates is so valuable. And you can hear when I talk about that, how excited I am. Like, it literally gives me goosebumps still. I've said that 1,000 times, but it gives me goosebumps because I'm so excited about the reality of what that could produce for somebody else. And we can't help everybody. There's certain clients that are a good fit for us, but we can help direct people in the right place, even if they're not a good fit for us. And so that's why we're now growing into this new area, which is coaching and consulting, because we found some people don't want us to do all the things for them, and maybe they don't have a budget for it. I mean, to work with Design Extensions, you need to have at least an annualized marketing budget of $30,000 absolute minimum. If you don't have that much on an annualized basis, that's totally okay. I didn't in the early years. I told you earlier, I only made $5,500 the first year. I couldn't have spent $30,000 on marketing in 1 year. And we have other clients who spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. But in those early years, you can't do that. You have to figure some of those things out yourself. And so that's why I'm starting more of the coaching and training piece of the puzzle, because I want to be able to help other people figure out what their first steps should be, figure out what they need to do, and give them some coaching, training, consulting that they can trust along the way to know that they're getting it right. And so that's really where my personal brand is going. And so people want to find out more about me, my book, all the things that we offer as a company. You can just go to one place, which is my website, which is jayowenlive.com. It's JAYOWENLIVE, jayowenlive.com. And on there, you can find all the things that connect to me. If you want to connect on social media, I'm on all the places. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, you name it. I'm not actually on TikTok, at least barely. So maybe I need to sort that out. I feel like I'm getting too old. So
I agree, but I was kind of forced to start one. I was told you need to start one. And I'm like, okay, I'll try, but I'm older than you, so I agree with you. So we will make sure that we have the details of your March event coming up. We will make sure that we share that with the Certifiably Unemployable listenership and Facebook page and all that. We'll do that. And also, I'm going to pop a link for people to download your book. And if they want the audio copy of that, I know there's a way to do that, because I know I'm going to snag myself a copy because it looks fantastic. So, Jay, I want to thank you again for being on Certifiably Unemployable, and congratulations on everything you're doing in your business, your family, just everything you have going on. It's fun to watch. Success and energy is contagious. And so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the show, Sean.
Absolutely. So you're listening to Certifiably Unemployable, and don't forget to connect with us, share your comments, like, subscribe. You don't want to miss an episode. Until next time.
You've been listening to Certifiably Unemployable. Ready to fire the boss yet? You're on your way. Sean has been self-employed for over 20 years. So if that's something that you want to do, something you've been dreaming about for years, Sean has all the knowledge, good, bad, and indifferent. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Facebook and Instagram at Certifiably Unemployable. Find us on YouTube and at www.certifiablyunemployable.com. Till next time, this is Certifiably Unemployable, signing off.